I was 17 the summer my life caught fire. My name's Lena Carter, and I wasn't anyone special. Just a regular teen spiraling through senior year in slow motion, failing trig, ghosting teachers, arguing with girls over nonsense, sneaking vape hits behind the gym. My mom called it a rough patch. My dad didn't call it anything. He barely spoke unless there was a bill involved. Then out of nowhere, they said we were going to Portugal. A digital detox, just us, no phones, no pressure. My parents hadn't traveled together in years, so naturally I assumed they were either dying or divorcing. But they looked excited, like people who just won the lottery and decided to spend it on family therapy, wrapped in sunshine and seafood. I let myself hope for once. Maybe this was their way of saying, we still care. The first few days were awkward. My dad overtipped every waiter like he was trying to buy karma. My mom kept pushing for selfies in front of cliffs and castles. I rolled my eyes but posed anyway. We shared pastries in Lisbon, listened to street guitarists in Alfama, and pretended we liked each other. And then came day 5. We were supposed to fly home that afternoon. Bags packed, breakfast eaten, hotel checkout looming. My mom wore her expensive lipstick, the one she only used for important moments. My dad was skimming the news like always, pretending he didn't notice her glaring at him across the table. Right after breakfast, they said they were stepping out to grab souvenirs from a nearby market. 15 minutes, tops, my mom promised, squeezing my hand like she still believed she was capable of tenderness. I stayed in the lobby scrolling through TikTok and group chats, roasting someone's weird prom dress, and wondering how long it'd take me to catch up on missed assignments. 20 minutes passed, then an hour, then 3. At first, I wasn't worried. Maybe they got caught in traffic. Maybe they were picking something special. But when I went to the front desk to ask, the clerk squinted at me like I was confused. Oh, the couple from room 406? They checked out earlier this morning. I laughed, like actually laughed out loud. It didn't make sense. But when I ran to our room, the keycard didn't work. And when the concierge unlocked it for me, I saw exactly what I feared. Nothing. No bags. No parents. No trace. Just a folded blanket and an empty minibar. I checked my backpack. Gone. My passport? Gone. Even my phone charger. Like I'd been airbrushed out of the itinerary. Panic crawled under my skin. I called my mom. Straight to voicemail. My dad? Same. Text sat undelivered like silent echoes. I started shaking. I walked in circles outside the hotel until my legs burned. A cafe owner offered me water. I didn't even respond. I was too busy reloading my inbox. That night, I didn't sleep. I wandered until I found a corner behind a flower shop and curled into myself like a question no one wanted to answer. The next morning, I dragged myself to the U.S. Embassy, clothes wrinkled, breath sour, hope barely flickering. A woman in a navy suit with a kind but tired face took my statement. She typed, paused, typed again, then frowned. You're no longer listed as a dependent under their insurance, she said slowly. Your return ticket has been canceled. I'm very sorry. That's when it hit me. They hadn't lost me. They'd left me. They'd made sure I couldn't follow. I walked back to the hotel in a daze, praying there'd be something, anything. A letter, a clue, a map even. All I found was a tiny note tucked inside the inside pocket of the denim jacket I'd worn on the plane. 5 words. Handwritten in my mother's neat, perfect script. You're 17. Old enough now. That was it. No signature. No goodbye. I stared at it until the words blurred. I wanted to scream. Instead, I folded it back up, pressed it into the pocket like a wound I didn't want to expose, and curled up behind a bakery dumpster for the second night in a row. By day 4, I was starving. The bakery behind me filled the alley with the smell of heaven-warm bread, cinnamon, burnt sugar. I waited until no one was looking, reached for a cooling tray near the open door, and almost cried when my hand touched the crust. I didn't hear her behind me. She grabbed my wrist mid-theft. Her grip was iron. I expected cops, trouble, deportation. Instead, the woman, short, sturdy, with streaks of silver in her braid and flour dust on her apron, just looked me in the eye and said, "If you're hungry, you work." Her name was Ines. She was 66, ran the place alone, and took no crap from anyone. She let me wash pans, mop floors, carry crates twice my size. That night, she pointed to a cot in the back storage room and tossed me a clean blanket. Sleep. We open at 5. That was it. No questions, no judgments. I don't think she needed my story. I think she'd lived enough of her own. I stayed. Not because I had a plan, but because I didn't have any other options. I learned how to fold dough, sweep without making noise, and dodge questions in broken Portuguese. I scrubbed ovens, burned my fingers, memorized espresso recipes. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a burden. Sometimes Inez would talk to herself while cleaning, half in English, half in her native tongue. Once, late at night, she looked at me and said, "My daughter was like you, quiet fire." I didn't ask what happened to her daughter. She never brought it up again. But from then on, she started leaving me extra pastries, the imperfect ones, the ones that still tasted like safety. I found a broken laptop in a recycling bin a few weeks later. I pieced it together with parts from a local repair shop, sweet-talking the tech guy into donating old cords and keys. I used bakery Wi-Fi after hours and signed up for a GED program online. I studied between shifts, sitting on flour sacks. The hum of the fridge, my lullaby. I whispered answers to quizzes like prayers. The note from my mom stayed in my jacket pocket. I read it some nights just to remind myself I'm still here. I'm still standing. Not out of spite. Out of spite and spite frosting. Because they didn't break me. They just gave me the first reason I ever had to build myself from scratch. At first, I told myself it was temporary. Just a stopgap until someone realized what had happened. That maybe somehow my parents would feel guilty. That the embassy would call back. That an aunt or distant cousin would show up and rescue me with a tight hug and a plane ticket home. But none of that happened. So I stayed. The bakery became my world. There was no sunrise without the scent of yeast and roasted almonds, no bedtime without sore feet and sugar under my fingernails. I memorized Inez's rhythm, how she hummed when the dough rose just right, how she cursed softly when the pastries burned, how she always poured her coffee before answering the phone. She didn't ask questions. I didn't offer answers. That was the deal. We existed in a quiet understanding, and in that silence I started growing roots. I picked up Portuguese fast, at least enough to follow instructions, and joke with the delivery guys. When the tourists came in, I handled the English orders. Inez started trusting me to run the register, then prep the morning trays alone. I didn't realize how much that meant until the day she overslept and I opened the shop by myself. She walked in half an hour later, blinked at the already filled shelves, and muttered, "You're not just fire, you're fuel." That night, she left a fresh bar of soap by my cot. I almost cried. The laptop became my second job. I'd squeeze in time at night, studying next to the humming fridge while the city outside quieted down. I fixed the sticky spacebar with a butter knife and elbow grease. There was no desk, no silence, no perfect lighting, but it didn't matter. I worked by the glow of the open oven light. I signed up for online GED classes and taught myself how to invest. I don't even remember how I got into finance. Maybe it was boredom, maybe desperation, but I found an article in a crumpled magazine left behind by a tourist. It talked about emerging markets and shipping stocks, and something just clicked. I started small, a few euros I'd earned under the table, dropped into a Greek freight company that had been restructuring. It tripled in 2 weeks. Beginner's luck? Maybe. But it made me hungry not for money, but for momentum. I watched hours of free YouTube lectures, took notes on napkins, replayed business podcasts in the background while folding croissants. I borrowed economics books from a dusty shop in Barro Alto where the owner didn't charge if you brought them back on time. I didn't tell Inez everything, but she knew something had shifted. "You read like you're chasing something," she said once, pouring espresso with the kind of precision most people reserve for brain surgery. I told her. I just don't know what it is yet. She nodded like that made sense. When I turned 18, I bought her a phone. Not a fancy one, just a clean little smartphone with a camera and enough memory for bakery apps. I wrapped it in wax paper like a pastry and slid it into her coat pocket. She didn't say anything when she found it, just stared at the screen like it had dropped from the sky. That was the beginning of us becoming more than just survivor and savior. We were partners now, quiet, careful, unstoppable. At 19, I registered a small consulting firm under a translated name, Solverde Strategies. Nothing flashy, just enough to look real on paper. By 20, I had 5 clients, mostly local vendors who needed help managing supply chains or tourists, asking how to move money without getting scammed. I kept everything online, pseudonyms in place, VPNs running. I was still undocumented, still invisible, but I was moving fast. Inez never asked how much I made, but she noticed the espresso machine that appeared one morning, the new delivery van, the heat finally fixed in the back room. She didn't ask, she didn't have to. "You walk lighter now," she said once, casually, like she was talking about the weather. I smiled. "Feels like I'm building something." "You are," she said, "brick by brick." But I wasn't done. The past didn't haunt me, it fueled me. Some nights, I unfolded the note from my mom, the one that said, "You're 17. Old enough now." I'd read it like a challenge. "You thought I'd fall apart? Watch me rise." By 22, I had investors mostly online, low risk, high yield. I created a mini course for girls like me, ones without papers, without parents, without options. I called it Ground Zero, Building from Ashes. The name wasn't subtle, but neither was my life. I started giving back quietly. Monthly donations to youth shelters in the US, especially Florida. Anonymous gift cards to crisis centers. No credit, no names. Part of me wanted them to see it and wonder. Part of me hoped they'd never find out. But then, one ordinary Thursday, Inez did something that shifted everything. She sat at our tiny bakery table with her glasses low on her nose, flipping through an old newspaper someone had left behind. She didn't even look up, just slid the page across the table and tapped one chipped nail on a small real estate listing. "You recognize that address?" I did, too well. It was the house I grew up in, the one my parents had moved into after abandoning me, the one they bragged about online, calling it their fresh start. Now it was in foreclosure. The listing was short, just a black and white photo and a bank logo. I stared at it, heart thumping. I hadn't spoken their names in years, hadn't stalked their Facebooks, hadn't looked up my old school, hadn't dared to Google myself. But in that moment, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Power. Not the angry, burning kind. The cold, controlled kind. I took a breath. "I think it's time I went home." Inez didn't ask questions, just nodded and poured more coffee. We flew under a business pretense, clean IDs, polished suits. I went by my legal business name, no Lena, just LC Screws, founder and consultant, untraceable professional, ice cold. The auction was held in a sunny parking lot outside a courthouse in Florida. The kind of place that smelled like humidity and judgment. Retired couples fanned themselves with brochures. Flippers in polos checked Zillow on their phones. No one looked twice at me. I whispered the number to Inez. She raised the bidding card like it weighed nothing. It wasn't personal, it was business. The bidding war was tight. One-man khakis, boat shoes, aggressive tan pushed hard. But Inez never flinched. She played it cool. When the gavel dropped and the auctioneer barked, "Sold to bidder 231, I didn't even blink. We owned it. The house. Their house. The one they built over my memory. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't sweating. I was smiling. Because I didn't just survive their abandonment, I came back for their future. And I wasn't finished yet. There's a strange quiet that comes with winning. Not celebration. Not adrenaline. Just this soft click inside your chest like a door you didn't know was locked has finally swung open. That's how it felt when the house became mine. The same house where I once learned to tie my shoes and fake a smile. The place they retreated to after leaving me oceans away, with nothing but a note and a worn-out jacket. Now it belonged to me. Not just the deed, the power. I didn't rush anything, didn't storm in. I let it breathe. I let them sweat. The foreclosure notice went out by mail and email. Certified, official, clean. It had my business name in the fine print. Nothing they'd recognize at first glance. They had 30 days. By week 2, their lawyer reached out. Not directly to me, to Inez. They assumed she was the face behind the firm. She played it calm, cool, unreadable. "They'd like to negotiate," she said over coffee. Good, I replied. So would I. The meeting was set in a neutral real estate office on the edge of town. Glass walls, beige carpet, fake plants too bright to be real. I got there early, sat at the polished wood table, watching my reflection in its surface. Hair pulled back, simple navy blazer, no jewelry, no name tag. I didn't want to be recognized, not right away. I wanted to see their faces before they realized. 2 minutes past the hour, the door opened. My mother walked in, first deliberate, sharp, dressed in something she thought whispered dignity but screamed desperation. Oversized sunglasses, beige cardigan, lips pressed into a practiced frown. My father followed, slower, more faded. He clutched a leather folder like it was a life raft. They nodded politely at me. Sat down, didn't know who I was, and I didn't speak, not at first. I let them sit in that room with their ignorance. I let them stew in comfort, just for a beat longer. Then I took off my sunglasses. The moment my mother saw my face, her entire body tensed, her lips parted, like a name was trying to crawl out but it never made it. My father blinked, then looked down. You left me, I said, voice steady, in a country you'd never even been to. No ID, no money, no plan. Just a note. My mom opened her mouth, but I raised a hand. Let me say this first. Silence wrapped the room like plastic. You could have told me. You could have said, we're drowning. You could have begged me to try harder. But instead, you erased me like I was a failed sketch. She tried to speak again, voice small, rehearsed. We thought, maybe it would be easier if we disappeared. I stared at her, flat and sharp. Easier for who? She didn't answer. My father still hadn't looked at me. So I turned to him. Say something. Anything. Say you fought for me. Say she forced you. He shifted, fingers twitching around the folder. Then finally, we didn't think you'd make it. Not sorry. Not unsure. Just honest. I stood up slowly. Well, I did. From the side hallway, Ines stepped in, clipboard in hand, expression unreadable. She placed it on the table in front of them. We'll need the house keys within 27 days, she said, firm. Move-out timeline is in the packet. My mother's eyes snapped between us. You can't do this, she whispered. We're your parents. Were, I said. That title expires when you abandon your child in another country and remove her from your insurance plan. Tears welled up. Not the real kind. The kind that came out when manipulation failed. You don't understand, she gasped. We were losing everything. We thought we'd start over. You did, I said, cool. And now I'm ending it. My father finally looked at me then, really looked. And in his eyes, I didn't see guilt. I saw confusion. Like he still didn't know how I'd made it. Why come back, he asked. After all this time? I paused. Because you needed to see who I became. Not for you. Despite you. They sat in silence. I slid the deed across the table. Not for them. For closure. Now you know what survival looks like. Then I turned and walked out. They tried damage control, of course. A week later, I found a Facebook post from my mom claiming I'd been brainwashed. That I'd returned out of nowhere. Unrecognizable. Heartless. With no explanation. She stormed in and took everything, it read. We don't even know who she is anymore. She was half right. They didn't know me. And they never would. The house wasn't just a house. It was a symbol, a wound, a chance to turn something broken into something whole. I didn't move in. I rebuilt it. Fresh paint. Soft gray with pale yellow trim, new floors, warm lighting. The old live, laugh, love signs came down and were replaced by shelves filled with books and photos of girls with messy buns and tired eyes, girls who'd been through hell and survived. We turned the master bedroom into a shared dorm space, 2 bunk beds, new mattresses, lavender comforters, lockboxes for personal things, a safe space. Ines named it the second door. Because sometimes the first one slams shut, she said, and you need a second chance to walk through. We didn't advertise. We didn't need to. Word spread. The girls came in, slowly at first runaways, dropouts, system ghosts. The kinds of girls who weren't missing, just misplaced. The first night, one of them cried when we handed her clean socks. Another didn't speak for a week, just curled up on the couch with a cup of tea, and stared at the wall. Inez didn't push. "Let them breathe," she said. "The rest comes later." I didn't become a saint. I still had sharp edges. Some nights, I lay awake and wondered if I'd ever feel normal, if there was even such a thing. But the difference now was, I wasn't alone in that wondering, and I wasn't stuck in that alley behind a bakery anymore. I was creating something real, something alive. The day we hosted our first open house, 6 girls showed up. One asked me if I was the founder. I looked around the warm light the fresh bread Inez had baked. The girl curled up on the window seat with her journal and said, "No, we all are. We built this together." Because survival had taught me something no school, no family, no GED program ever could. That the opposite of abandonment isn't just attention, it's intention. And I was done being forgotten. Life after that meeting didn't get quieter. It got fuller. Our little haven, the second door, became something more than we ever expected. It wasn't just a shelter. It became a rhythm, a pulse, a heartbeat made of mismatched mugs, midnight talks, and shared silence. It became a place where nobody had to earn safety. You showed up, you stayed, you belonged. Inez started teaching baking classes on Wednesdays, free for anyone who walked through the front gate with open hands and tired eyes. She'd slap dough on the counter like it owed her money, then nod toward the girls. "Try," she'd say. And if it flops, try again. They laughed. They learned. Some burned everything the first time. But no one left hungry. One girl, Jules, figured out how to braid the perfect loaf before she learned how to trust anyone. Another, Mari, barely spoke but organized the pantry like it was a library. They didn't owe us their stories, just their presence. That was enough. I didn't talk much about where I'd been, not because I was hiding it because I didn't need to anymore. But sometimes, late at night, I'd see pieces of myself in them. The girl who couldn't sleep in a bed because it felt too soft. The one who double-checked if her toothbrush was really hers. The one who flinched when someone said her name too loud. We carried old fears like invisible luggage. But here, we weren't judged for them. We were allowed to unpack. My business kept growing. I kept it quiet, mostly. Consulting gigs, back-end system designs, investment strategy for small vendors. Word of mouth brought clients from Lisbon to Toronto. Nobody needed to know where I came from, just that I delivered. Some nights I still sat in the old storage room, the same one I used to sleep in, running spreadsheets while the scent of cinnamon drifted in from the kitchen. That scent reminded me I was alive, and that being alive was more than just breathing. I thought that chapter with my parents was closed, but it wasn't, because some people don't stay gone. They circle back when the light returns, like moths who miss the fire they once fled from. It started small, a letter, no return address, just a clean white envelope, slid under the door of the real estate office that handled the auction. They forwarded it to my PO box. It was from my mother. The handwriting was unmistakable, tight, perfect loops, like she'd written it while holding her breath. "Lena, we didn't know what we were doing. We were scared, lost. You were so angry back then. We thought it was the only way. But now, please, let's talk. Your father's sick. We just want to see you again." I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even move. I just folded the letter once, slowly, and put it in the back of a drawer, behind the bills, beneath the lease agreement for the bakery's expansion. Letting go didn't mean forgetting. It meant choosing not to bleed every time someone tried to pick the scab. A week later, she showed up, at the gate. No warning, no call. Just a beige car with out-of-state plates, and a woman gripping the steering wheel like it might vanish if she let go. I watched her from the front porch. She didn't see me at first. She stared at the house like it was a dream she didn't quite recognize. Her mouth moved like she was counting windows. Maybe memories. Maybe regrets. I should have walked away, but I didn't. I walked down the path, calm, grounded. When our eyes met, something flickered in hers, like she wasn't sure if I was real. "Lena," she said, voice cracking like thin ice. I didn't answer, just waited. I saw the listing. I didn't know it was you. I swear I didn't. Not until the meeting. I raised an eyebrow. "And now?" She swallowed. "Now I just want to understand. I know we messed up. I know we hurt you. But you seem Happy now. Stable. I just want to be a part of that. That word hit like a slap. Part? One asked. You had your part. You ended it in Portugal. We were broken, she whispered. So you broke me too, I said. She didn't deny it. Just stood there, shoulders sinking. Your father's sick, she repeated. He talks about you every night. Keeps asking what we did wrong. You left, I said. You made a choice. This, I gestured to the house behind me, was built from that choice. Her eyes filled, but I saw the flicker again. The same one she always used when trying to win arguments without raising her voice. Manipulation, dressed up as grief. I didn't budge. I'm not angry, I said. But I'm not here to fix what you broke either. I built this life so no one could ever take it from me again. Not even you. Can I come in? She asked. I paused, then shook my head. No, but you can sit on the porch. I'll bring you tea. She didn't last long, half an hour. She drank the tea, hands trembling, then stood up and said she had to go. He won't make it much longer, she said. If you want to see him. I nodded once. I'll think about it. That night, I sat by the garden wall under the porch light, watching shadows stretch across the grass. Inez sat beside me, sipping chamomile. You okay? She asked. I don't know, I said. I thought I'd feel something stronger. She nodded. Closure isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just quiet enough to sleep through the night. I didn't go see him. Not because I hated him. Because I was finally at peace, not needing anything from them. No apology. No closure. No confession. Instead, I planted lavender right under the window that used to face my old bedroom. The room they once said didn't belong to me anymore. Now it does. Every petal, every root, every damn bloom. The seasons turned without much noise. That's something I learned about peace. It doesn't announce itself. It just arrives, steady and quiet, like warm bread rising in the dark. The second door had a rhythm now. Mornings meant fresh loaves and sleepy girls with tangled hair bumping into each other in the hallway. Evenings were full of slow music, soft lights, and stories told in fragments over chipped mugs. We weren't trying to heal everything, just enough to keep going. One morning, I was in the backyard trimming the lavender when Jules came flying out the back door. Someone's here, she said, breathless. She says she knows you. I wiped my hands on my apron, heart already knocking once against my ribs. What's her name? Didn't say, but she had a backpack. Looks familiar. I followed her through the kitchen, across the living room where Mari was folding laundry in her usual quiet way, and opened the front door. And there she was. Talia, one hadn't seen her in 3 years. We'd met in Lisbon, back when I was still figuring out what hunger really felt like. She'd been squatting in an old hostel with 4 other girls and a cat named Benji. We crossed paths through a charity food line. She'd offered me half her sandwich even though I didn't ask. Talia had always been like that, reckless, generous, burning too fast for one lifetime. Now, she looked older. Not in a wrinkled way, but in the eyes, like time had taken pieces. Still, when she smiled, it cracked straight through my walls. You look clean, she said. Weird. I laughed. You still talk too much. She stepped in without waiting for permission. That was Talia. Always was. We sat on the porch with tea. I made cinnamon toast, which made her cry a little, though she pretended it was just too hot. So, I said, where have you been? Here, there, mostly Madrid. Got into some trouble, got out of it, mostly. Mostly? She shrugged. I never had your patience. That made me pause. What do you mean, my patience? Talia stared into her cup for a second too long, then said, I mean, this. All of this. You didn't just survive, you built a damn world. I didn't say anything, because I knew what was coming, and I think she did too. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, she knocked on my office door. She stood there holding a file folder, worn, taped shut. Her fingers trembled slightly when she handed it over. Before you open it, she said, just know I didn't know how else to tell you. Inside were papers, official-looking ones. A scanned ID contracts, records from Lisbon. My name, not the name I use now. The one I used then, but not signed by me. What is this? I asked slowly. Talia didn't sit. She stood there, jaw tight. A guy I knew. Back then, he hacked embassy records for fake IDs. He He used your info, said it wouldn't matter, said you were a ghost. My stomach dropped. Talia. He sold your name and your passport data to two different people, both undocumented. One of them used it to apply for asylum. The other, God knows. I stared at the papers. My past. My actual identity. Scattered. Sold. Misused. When? I asked. A year after you disappeared. I didn't know until a few months ago. I was couch hopping in Seville, and someone mentioned your name like it was public record. She sat down finally. I tracked it back. I'm sorry, Lena. I didn't do it, but I didn't stop it either. I didn't speak for a while. There was no point shouting. The damage was already done. My real name had been scrubbed from the system by my parents. Now it had been used by strangers I'd never met. My legal identity was compromised. Everything I built could unravel if this caught up to me the wrong way. Why now? I asked quietly. Why come here? Talia's voice cracked. Because I didn't know where else was safe. We sat in silence. She didn't ask me for anything. Not directly. But I saw it in her eyes. She wanted a chance. Same as I once had. And here's the thing, I believed her. Because I knew what it meant to be erased and reassembled. To look in the mirror and see pieces that didn't line up. To carry guilt like a second skin. I let her stay. Not because I owed her, but because I remembered what it felt like to be shown mercy when you least deserved it. We pulled her off the books, gave her the guest cot for now, taught her the bakery routine. Inez didn't flinch when she heard. She just muttered, "Everyone brings ghosts. Let her learn how to sweep them out." But I knew this was bigger. The papers Talia brought weren't just a mistake, they were a warning. Someone out there had my identity, which meant someone out there could take everything I'd built. And I wasn't about to let that happen. I spent the next week going over everything, quietly, carefully. I resecured our business accounts, moved the house into a trust under a different name, scrubbed what I could from the web, called in a favor from an old client in tech security. We locked things down tight. Talia helped where she could, but mostly she just watched. One night, as I was rewriting encryption protocols in the office, she leaned against the doorframe and said, "You're not scared, are you?" "I've been through worse," I replied. "Fear doesn't stop me. It reminds me to double-check the locks." She nodded slowly. "You're not the girl I used to know." "Good," I said. "That girl didn't make it. I had to build someone stronger." But the fear wasn't gone. It sat quietly in the corner, reminding me that safety isn't permanent. Not when your past is still moving behind you. So I prepared, because the storm was coming. And this time, I wouldn't be the one caught off guard. The storm didn't arrive with thunder. It came in the form of an email. Encrypted, untraceable sender, one sentence in the subject line, "We know who you really are." I was in the bakery office when it landed. Inez across the room folding linen aprons. Talia in the hallway humming low, something sweet and forgettable. I opened it. The body of the email was short, sharp, like it didn't need to scream to be dangerous. "Your ID was used to apply for refugee status in Greece. The authorities are reopening the case. If this gets out, your business license, your legal holdings, and your visa protections could all be flagged. We suggest a conversation." Attached was a phone number with no country code. Whoever this was, they knew the right pressure points. But I didn't panic, because I'd already learned something most people never do. If someone threatens your foundation, check the walls, not the roof. I called the number. A man answered. Not law enforcement, not a lawyer, just calm, collected, too careful. "Miss Cruz," he said. "Or should I say Lena?" I didn't answer. "We have access to the original passport application. The asylum claim was filed under your details. That means your name's on record, whether you like it or not, and you're doing very well these days. Makes for an interesting legal puzzle." I leaned back in the chair. "What do you want?" He didn't hesitate. "Money, or we open a case. Could take everything you've built down with it." I let the silence stretch, then said, "Send your demands, one time, that's all you get." The list came in the next morning. 150,000 euros, wire transfer, offshore account, and a warning: one wrong move and we go to press. Your second life ends. I printed it out. then burned it in the sink. Because the thing about people who weaponize your past, they think they're the only ones holding a match. But they forget that if you've already been burned, flames don't scare you anymore. I didn't tell the girls right away. Not because I wanted to hide it, but because I needed a plan first. I went to Talia. "You know who it is?" she asked. "Not yet, but I have an idea." We pulled up old contacts, messages, dark web whispers names that had floated near stolen identities and refugee scams over the last 5 years. A name came up more than once: Marcos Diros, Lisbon, Athens, Barcelona. A fixer, a middleman, a ghost with too many fingerprints. I found a burner thread where he once advertised services, fresh identities, silent records. "Everything clean unless you cross me." I sat with it, then typed, "Let's talk." He agreed to meet. Athens, public square, neutral territory. Talia insisted on coming. Inez packed us food and said nothing, but her hug lingered longer than usual. "Don't lose yourself chasing ghosts," she whispered. "I'm not," I said. "I'm bringing one home." We arrived just before sunset. He was there, lean, clean-shaven, expensive jacket, but the kind of eyes that had seen too much and remembered every detail. "Lena Cruz," he said, like a smile he didn't mean. "You used my name," I replied. "No, I sold it." "You'd already lost it." He sat like he owned the air. "You're impressive," he added. "I didn't think you'd build something this big. But that makes you valuable, which is why I'm offering a clean trade. Pay, and I vanish. Everyone wins." I leaned forward. "What if I say no? Then you lose it all. I leak everything. Your name, the stolen ID trail, the embassy glitch. You'll be scrubbed clean again, but not the good kind." Talia tensed beside me. I stared at him and smiled. "You know what the best thing about building a life from scratch is?" He tilted his head. "You're not afraid to lose it, because you already did once." He laughed. "That's poetic. But it doesn't pay my fee." I pulled out a flash drive. "This does." "What's that?" "Every detail of your operations. The girls you burned, the ones you erased, including one who died in custody because of a fake ID you sold her." His face changed, not fear, not guilt. Just cold calculation. "You wouldn't." "I would, and already did." I nodded toward the bench where a woman sat reading a paper. She looked up, snapped a photo, walked away. Interpol. Real. Quiet. Watching. I stood. "You wanted a conversation. This was it." "You'll regret this," he said. "No, you will." We walked away. He didn't follow. 2 days later, the email account went dark. The threats stopped. 3 weeks after that, news broke that a man connected to cross-border ID trafficking had been arrested in Spain. No names. But I knew. Sometimes justice doesn't arrive in courtrooms. Sometimes it comes wrapped in quiet victories and closed loops. Back home, life folded back into itself. Talia stayed. She helped in the kitchen, ran inventory, repaired a fence out back with duct tape and 2 bad jokes. She'd been burned too, but she was learning that scars don't mean broken, they mean rebuilt. One day, she handed me a letter. No stamp, just sealed. "For them," she said. Inside, it said, "You left me thinking I was the problem. Now I know I was the warning. I never sent it, but I kept it. Some messages don't need delivery, just acknowledgement." The girls at the second door kept growing. Some stayed months, others years. All left with something they didn't have before: hope, skills, a soft place to land inside their own skin. Ines called it soul glue. "It's what holds the broken edges," she said. "Invisible, but strong." I never changed my name back. Not because I feared it, but because Lena Cruz became something I built, not something I inherited. The past shaped me, but I named myself, and that matters. The last scene, it's not dramatic. It's not a headline. It's me, sitting on the porch, watching Jules help Mari paint the garden fence. Talia's inside, fixing the speaker that only works if you kick it. Ines is baking something that smells like forgiveness. And the house, it hums. Like it's breathing, like it knows we made it. So if you ever feel erased, let me remind you, you are not lost, you are not broken, you are in progress. And sometimes building a new story doesn't mean starting over. It means choosing which parts deserve to stay. Story 2, I spent a lot of time looking at the screen. My coffee became chilly. My hands were shaking, but not because I was surprised. It came from verification. My sister was there, grinning while wearing white lace, surrounded by laughter and roses. As her new spouse planted a kiss on her cheek, she tipped her head back. That picture included everyone we've ever met. Everybody but me. The happiest day of her life was not open to me. They didn't even recognize me. What was bad about it? It didn't surprise me. I'm Claire, and I'm 34 years old. I'm old enough to understand that words can't always be heard over silence. Once, I served as her maid of honor, as well as each and every dream we had. After she married my high school bully, she totally obliterated me. You know, we used to organize our weddings together. We danced barefoot in the garden, created veils out of pillowcases, and made comments like we'll share the venue if we marry on the same day. I was 2 years older than my sister. However, I didn't mind flickering behind her because she was always the brighter flame. When we were 10 and 12, we even made a cassette tape recording. It was high-pitched, ridiculous, and priceless. We pledged on it that no guy would ever stand in our way and that we would always go down the aisle together. Sisters for eternity, best pals for eternity. When people violate vows they made when they were kids, it hurts more since they meant it at the time. It wasn't all at once that everything fell apart. The rip wasn't clean. It rotted slowly. It started with Liam, a boy. In his junior year, he transferred to our school. Fake smiles and flawless hair. The type of person who cheated on examinations and flirted with professors. He made my life miserable as well. He made it known that I was attracted to one of the gym teachers, claimed to have spotted me engaging in certain activities in the locker area. I hadn't at all. It destroyed me. For months, people's perceptions of me changed. My reputation collapsed. I couldn't bear the rumors, so I didn't go to prom. And I approached Liam after learning that he was the one responsible. He chuckled, said it was a joke, said that you ought to have seen it as a compliment. That smirk stayed with me forever. Thus, 2 years later, my sister began dating him. Indeed, 2 years. It wasn't a cruel coincidence, despite what I thought. I recall my initial attempt to inform her that we would be eating lunch together. As the watchful, protective older sister, I told her to be careful around Liam, since she appeared content and even glowing. He is not who you believe him to be. She carefully set down her fork and gave me a direct gaze. You have always detested men. I enjoyed it. Admit it. You're envious. Jealousy is that term. It was like a knife to her. I remained silent after that. I didn't do any research. I didn't mention it once again. Because no amount of evidence can convince someone you love to trust you when they choose not to. However, things worsened. One summer during a family meal, at the head of the table, sitting like a golden boy, was Liam. I softly brought up the past. I made an effort to sound impartial. It's funny how life goes. At our dining table presently sits a man who previously ruined my entire academic year. Immediately, my father's face transformed. Are you really bringing that up at this point? Give it up. Not even my sister flinched. She continued to chop her steak. Don't humiliate us, my mother's tight-lipped smile usually conveyed to me. I sobbed in my car that night. It was because they didn't care, not because of what they said. I returned to our parents' place a week later to get a box of my old books. I heard noises in the kitchen as soon as I entered. I paused and listened. My father and mother were conversing in whispers. She will spoil the entire wedding if we don't eliminate her. It's either the ceremony or her, and that's it. I was aware of their decision. Even faking for me wasn't worth it. After a few days, the invitation came. Not for me, anyhow. For them. My parents opened it as if there were no problems. The golden bossing made me swoon, chuckled at the catering choices. They simply stared at me when I inquired whether there was another envelope with my name on it. A few hours later, my sister received a message. Only one. All I want is for my wedding to be peaceful. Please be understanding. No call, no apology, no explanation. It was only a statement that may have been read. This is not a place for you. I didn't respond. Nothing else could be said. You cease pleading to be understood when your sister marries your bully and then sides with him over blood, or when a family chooses to ignore you. You begin making plans about what to do with the quiet they left you, and I came to a realization as I sat there looking at her flawless wedding picture. She believed she had wiped me out. On other occasions, however, the absence speaks louder than the presence, and I was going to demonstrate it. Some give gift cards or crystal vases. Some arrive with glasses of champagne and remarks. Me, I sent a silent message, wrapped in a ribbon, memory sealed, because I was going to be there even if I wasn't attending the wedding. Not as a visitor, as a mirror, not as a sister. The shoebox was the first. It had been years since I had touched it. Like a mausoleum filled with things that had once lived inside of me, it sat in the back of my closet. The fragrance of time hit me as soon as I opened it. Dust from old papers. Youth. The bracelet was the first item I discovered. The purple and pink thread has worn down. Half of the silver charm broke off. During a summer darkness, we succeeded. I had to cut mine off because she knotted it so tightly. After 6 months, wearing them at each other's weddings was our vow. She didn't remember. I didn't. The picture followed, creased, and a little discolored. The 3 of us were involved. Liam, her, and myself. Only. I was hardly there. His arm nearly obscured my face as it extended across the screen. I used to be bothered by the picture. It was the ideal metaphor. The tape then appeared. Our youthful voices were sweet and full of promise. We will always pick one another. We shall never be broken by any foolish lad. I will still be your maid of honor even if you are married before me. That tape was rewound 3 times. I refrained from crying. I refrained from screaming. I simply listened, as if I were trying to recall what it was like to be taken seriously. That's when I realized what I needed to do. She didn't include me in her day. I would thus send her a reminder of the people she left behind, not for petty reasons. I couldn't bear this burden any longer, and it was always hers to bear, not even out of retaliation. I purchased a plain white box. No logo, no card. Simply clean, modest. I put the bracelet inside it. It's still cracked, still real. The picture was cropped a little. Thus, the frame was dominated by Liam's arm. I wrote the tape. Before reading the label, hit play. The letter comes last. It had 8 pages, handwritten. No changes, no filtering. Before you said I did, I gave it a label. I began in a lullaby-like tone. Being your sister used to be my favorite thing about me. The melody to my background noise was you, and I can still hear the sound of your laugh today, when it rained and we danced. I then flipped to the next page. However, you stopped hearing me at some point, or perhaps you simply choose not to. Despite Liam spreading false information about me in high school, I told her all she already knew. Teachers' perceptions of me were altered by the falsehoods that trailed me. How the rumors he started caused me to miss my own senior prom. She called me jealous when I brought up the night I told her. I didn't say anything angry. I made use of facts, recollections. Because when kindness is wrapped around guilt, it speaks louder. Then I revealed something she had never anticipated. After drinking too much wine 2 years ago, my roommate from college pulled me aside. She informed me that Liam had shown her messages and made several attempts to sleep with her. The week you got engaged was the date of one of them. I didn't tell you. I knew you would find a way to shield him from the truth, not because I wanted to keep him safe. I stopped writing at that point because my hands were shaking, not because I was at a loss for words. The following lines. They were rooted in something more profound than rage. You always claimed that I caused trouble, ruined things, and stirred the pot. However, the truth is that all I ever wanted was for you to gaze at me in the same manner as before, prior to him teaching you to doubt me. The man you married erased me and did the same to you. I didn't end it with resentment, though, for this was not retaliation. It was made available. The last words were straightforward and accurate. I remained silent because I loved you. Too long, perhaps. I'm finally going to speak. I shut the letter. The box was sealed. No address for return. Only a delivery slip with the bride's words on it. I didn't get any sleep that night. I watched the rain from the window. It wasn't poetic at all. It was not a movie. It was miserable and cold. However, something inside of me finally broke free in that silence like an old thread. I had no idea how she would respond. I didn't give a damn. Not really, since I hadn't warned her or threatened her. I sent her the truth. And once you've sent that, you don't chase it. You just wait for the echo. I didn't plan on watching. I told myself I wouldn't care, wouldn't scroll. I wouldn't type her name into the search bar like a masochist. But the moment I opened Instagram, there it was. Tag after tag, photo after photo, filtered, happiness, pinned, smiles, choreographed, joy. My sister's wedding. She looked beautiful, radiant in a way that didn't belong to her, alone. It belonged to every woman convinced she was walking into forever. I could have cried, but I didn't. I just watched, calm face, steady breath, but my fingers, they trembled on the screen. In one clip, they're cutting the cake, in another, she's dancing with her father. And then there's Liam giving a toast, smiling that same smug smile he used to flash before ruining someone's life. I set my phone down and closed my eyes. She had everything, the dress, the guests, the applause, but I had something to the truth. And it was on its way. It arrived sometime after the champagne was poured and the speeches ended, mid-reception. Perfect timing. The courier stepped inside like any other hired hand, pressed shirt, clipboard, blank expression. The box wasn't labeled, no card, just clean white packaging with a note on top to the bride. Her maid of honor brought it to her with a curious smile. The crowd leaned in, thinking it was from some distant relative or old friend. She peeled back the wrapping slowly. First the bracelet. She froze. Her hands stopped mid-motion as she stared at the cracked silver charm, the very one she tied to my wrist 15 years ago. Liam leaned over, squinting. "What is that?" She didn't answer, just kept on boxing. Next came the cassette. She blinked. It had writing on it. My handwriting. Play before reading. Her lips parted, her breath caught, but she didn't play it. She set it aside with trembling fingers and pulled out the next item, a folded sheet of paper. The printed copy of the rumor Liam wrote all those years ago. Some guests noticed, some didn't. But the moment she reached the letter, the one marked in black ink, "Before you say I do," the energy in the room changed. She opened it and began to read. At first it was silent, just her voice, low and steady, speaking aloud the words I had written in my own storm. "Being your sister used to be my favorite thing about me." People turned. Conversations paused. The DJ stopped the music. She kept reading, but somewhere along the way, you stopped hearing me. Or perhaps you simply choose not to. Her voice cracked. Her hands began to shake. Then she reached the next line. 2 years ago, my college roommate pulled me aside. She told me Liam tried to sleep with her the same week you were engaged. Gasps. A glass cracked somewhere in the background. The air got razor keen. Liam's countenance turned from perplexity to terror. "I didn't tell you. Not because I wanted to protect him, but because I knew you'd shield him from the truth." He lunged. "That's a lie." Liam growled, grasping at the letter. "She's telling lies. This is her being bitter again." But it was too late. People had heard enough. The quiet in the room was deafening than any shout. The bride. My sister simply stood there, holding the letter as if it were a burn. Then the last twist appeared. Not me. From the masses, someone held up a phone. Then another. She was on tape. The whole moment had been captured while reading the letter. The breakdown from the box. One of the bridesmaids muttered, "It's on the internet already." And in a matter of hours, it spread. TikTok first posted the video, followed by Twitter and YouTube with a caption. During the reception, the bride reads a letter from an odd sister that exposes the groom's infidelity. The comments began to pour in. "This reminds me of a movie. Well done, sister. What a monarch. Red flags should not be ignored for this reason. It appears like Liam witnessed a ghost. LOL. Justice was not served. The ideal wedding turned into a show, a viral reckoning, a warning story." I only watched enough of the video to see her face go down as she read my last remarks. I remained silent because I loved you. Too lengthy, perhaps. I'm finally gonna talk. I didn't grin. Since this was not about getting even, I refrained from gloating. This was about the truth coming to the fore at last. Even if in order to be heard, it had to ruin a wedding. It poured once more 3 days after the wedding, the type of rain that hangs in the air like something incomplete, sluggish and melancholy. The knock came as I was brewing tea, nor hesitant nor panicked, simply hollow, as if they had nothing left to lose. She was there when I opened the door. Still wearing her wedding gown, my sister's makeup was smeared, and her mascara melted into her weary skin. She had no ring in her hand or on her finger. The wristband, our creation amid the blackout, She was expected to wear it to my wedding. I also consumed hers. Like the final remnant of childhood that had not yet broken, the charm dangled by a thread. She gave me a prolonged gaze. We both remained silent. She opened her mouth, closed, parted once more. At last, she said something. I was aware of his actions. Prior to our marriage, I was aware of Liam's actions. I gasped, but I remained still. I didn't want to acknowledge that I was mistaken about him, so I married him nevertheless. How about you? Almost anything. Halfway through that final syllable, her voice broke. She gripped the bracelet more tightly, as if letting go would cause it to vanish. I believed that the past would cease to matter if I simply ignored it. However, you prevented me from forgetting. You saw to it that I did. Everything. Her eyes were hurting, actual suffering. Not that you pretend to be sympathetic, the type you get when you eventually look in the mirror. I didn't shout, though. I refrained from crying. I didn't embrace her or say something kind and polite about forgiving her. I spoke the one thing I had been keeping for years instead. I had no intention of ruining your wedding. I was attempting to return your mirror to you. Quiet, heavy, sincere. I watched as her fingers eventually relaxed and she let the bracelet drop as she glanced down at it once more. It clattered dully against the porch wood, then lay still. After turning to go, she stopped at the first step. Didn't turn around, didn't make any requests. That's what she said. Without you, I don't think I know who I am. After that, she departed. No big exit. No ribbon-wrapped apologies. Nothing but quiet. The kind that is more powerful than words. After she left, I stood there for a long time. I was listening to the rain hitting the roof. Steady and gentle. The reality. I didn't feel like I had won. I felt no vindication. However, I did feel lighter. Not all wounds bleed. They reverberate. Additionally, not all wars end spectacularly. When one of them quits, acting as though the other never existed, they come to an end. Her wedding did not include me, but she will never forget me, where the truth endures forever. Story 3. Attending your own funeral is an odd experience. Even stranger if it was organized by your family. As I applied a thick layer of scarlet to my lips, it was the notion that kept repeating in my head. My mother used to call that same shade too loudly. I fixed my own eyes on myself in the mirror, as if I were daring the ghost there to wince. First, they declared me dead to everyone, not in a symbolic sense, not inside the time limit. We also don't discuss her in that manner. I mean it literally. I wasn't invited to the event, which included a slideshow, a gathering, and an announcement of my passing. I've been living in the background for the past 12 years. Keep quiet, a long distance off, invisible. I created a life, a very excellent one. However, I could still sense their stillness, pursuing me no matter how far I fled. I didn't realize how much of a lie they were until last week. Suddenly, I received a message from a childhood acquaintance. Hold on, you're dead, right? Initially, I chuckled. Then I noticed a family photo posted on Facebook. My sister grinned. Behind her, my parents are proud, and there is a comment underneath. Every day we miss her. This year, she would have turned 33. They verbally murdered me. I was buried in falsehoods. But now that I'm back, they don't know what's going to happen. I straightened the material of my black dress, put on my earrings, and took a proud stance. The family gets together one again today to celebrate, have fun, and take the ideal photo. I'll be there. The ghost they attempted to extinguish is on the verge of rapping on the front door. Some people's houses are warm when they grow up. Sundays are for casseroles, stories for bedtime, the gentle hands of a mother removing hair off their face. In my home, I did not. There were conditions on love. Currency was approval. And I was insolvent all the time. My mother was a disciplinarian, not a lover. Her value was based on obedience and quiet. I let my father down. Even in the presence of others, he was a ghost, constantly there, never present. Then, she was there. My sister, golden child, flawless grades, flawless hair, perfect lies. I was the complete opposite of what they want. I made inquiries. When I sensed something wasn't right, I spoke out. When I didn't mean to grin at them, I didn't. I became rebellious as a result. Inconsiderate, disgraceful. When I wanted to be heard, they labeled me ungrateful, unstable because of emotions. I am unlovable for who I am. Silence was more than simply survival. I discovered by the age of 16, it was expected. However, I continued to believe at that time they could see me someday. Then I got to know Eli. He was compassionate, kind, and humorous. Without expecting anything in return, his world was quite apart from ours. Distinct upbringing and background, everything is different. But he made me feel alive, appreciated, and seen. My mother didn't scream when she learned. The human element would have been too much. "You're no longer one of us," she replied, staring me in the eyes. The ultimatum followed. Pick us or him. I asked whether I could make my own decision. The last betrayal was that. I received a present on my 18th birthday. My clothes in a black garbage bag and a bus ticket to nowhere, and an unfulfilled farewell. No tears, no hugging. All I could hear was the front door shutting without locking behind me. I recall wondering whether they even knew I was there. As I sat on the curb with the trash bag, I was not pursued. Nobody made a call, then no, never. I wasn't just unwelcome, they eliminated me. However, they were unaware that the girl they discarded would eventually develop into the woman they would later regret producing. I hadn't heard their voices for over 10 years. And that was okay with me. No holidays, no birthdays, no guilt-tripping phone calls, and no acting as though the past never happened. Until it spoke again, I had come to terms with the stillness. The afternoon was a Tuesday. Typical. In my apartment, I was enjoying a cup of coffee when a Facebook notice reminded me of a girl I hadn't seen since high school. It was a brief, almost hesitant message. "Is this you, please?" I believed you were no longer alive. My hands went cold. 3 times I read the message again. Dead? Perhaps that was a prank, I thought. An error? An instance of identity confusion. I thus gave a cautious response. "Yes, it's me. What makes you believe that?" She answered right away. "My parents told everyone that I died in a car accident not long after I left home," she stated. A few years ago, they even discussed it at a religious event. In front of a packed crowd, my mother, the same lady who couldn't look me in the eye when she expelled me, had choked back tears as she spoke about losing her daughter to the perils of disobedience. Sometimes the world punishes you for turning away from your family. In her own words, she wept for the daughter she had murdered. I couldn't decide whether to scream or laugh. No obituary, no accident, nothing. Not a grave, a falsehood cloaked in sanctimony, that's all. Presented as fact, I asked my longtime friend whether she had any pictures or documentation. She forwarded me a photo from the religious function that someone had posted. A table with candles, a slideshow, and a framed picture of myself when I was 16 were all present. The one with optimism in my eyes and braces still on. They didn't just stop talking to me. They didn't just act as though I didn't exist. They said I was dead. To pals, to relatives, apparently to God himself. No one questioned their decision to bury me in front of witnesses. Nobody showed up to look. Nobody questioned whether the narrative was too tidy to polish, too easy. I wasn't absent. I was still alive. I was just a pain in the neck. As if I were a bad chapter, they thus wrote me out of the story. They were unwilling to recall. The problem with ghosts, however, is this. Their burial is not permanent. I vanished after telling the lie, not because of embarrassment, out of necessity. They desired my death. All right. I allowed my former self to perish, but the woman I turned into, fire was her birthplace. I kept my head down and my heart safe for years. No assistance. No freebies, not a family. I had 3 jobs. Scrubbing offices in between working as a bookstore cashier at night and a diner waitress in the morning. I slept in rooms that I had borrowed, lived off of ambition and instant noodles. But every exam, every shift, every dollar saved, passed with blistered fingers and bloodshot eyes. I returned to a single sentence. They declared me dead, and that statement turned into fuel. I made myself go to school, graduated with honors, turned a freelance design gig into a 6-figure interior design business. Clients trusted me with their homes because I had built mine from nothing. No safety net, no congratulations, just grit, scars, and an unshakable promise to myself. If I ever come back, it won't be to beg. It'll be to show them what they lost. For a while, that was enough. Success filled the silence they left behind. But then the silence started whispering again. It was another old friend, this time a mutual acquaintance who had stayed close with the family. She texted me a linked family Facebook page. There it was, my parents grinning ear to ear beneath a banner that read, 40th anniversary celebration. All family welcome, all family except me. There were dozens of comments, dozens of photos, people reminiscing about the good old days, tagging my sister, mentioning cousins, aunts, uncles, and not one mention of me. Not a shadow, not a whisper, not even a lie. They hadn't just killed me off. They had rewritten the story as if I was never born. I spent a lot of time looking at the screen. Then I closed the laptop and stood up. You wanted me gone so badly. All right. But if you're going to pretend I'm a ghost, then I'll give you a haunting you'll never forget. It was time. Time to return, not to ask for love, but to deliver the truth face to face. The day was bright, too bright. Almost one of those picture-perfect afternoons where everything looks calm. Right before a storm hits, the house hadn't changed. Same white fence, same rose bushes, same cold feeling in my chest. The moment I stepped out of the car, laughter spilled from the open patio. Champagne glasses clinked. Old hymns played softly through the speakers. Relatives I hadn't seen in over a decade stood shoulder to shoulder, sharing memories I was never part of. They looked so happy, so proud, so certain that the past had stayed buried. But not for long. I didn't knock. I didn't have to. I walked through the gate slowly, calmly, heels clicking like a metronome, counting down the seconds to impact. A few people glanced my way with polite, confused smiles. They didn't recognize me. Not quite yet. Not until Aunt Ruth dropped her glass. The shatter was sharp. Instant silence followed. All heads turned, and then I saw her, my sister. She froze, mid-calf mouth still curved in a smile that didn't know it was about to die. Her eyes locked onto mine like she was seeing a ghost. Because to her, that's exactly what I was. "Is this some kind of sick joke?" she said, her voice just loud enough to tremble. I took one more step forward, lifted my chin, met her fear with fire. "Not a joke," I said. "I'm very much alive." No one spoke, no one moved. Even the music stopped. Or maybe someone shut it off. I'll never know. All I remember is the weight in the air, thick with guilt and confusion. I looked around the crowd. Old family, friends, distant cousins, people who had prayed for my soul at a memorial that never should have happened. Some of them had tears in their eyes. Others looked away. And then there were my parents, standing by the cake table, pale as stone. My father gripped the edge of the table like he might fall. My mother, she reached for her necklace, the crucifix she always grasped while she lied. I took another step. "You may relax. I didn't come to disrupt your small party. I only come to remind you, you can't bury someone who isn't dead." The quiet cracked, and below it, the truth began to rise. I stood in the heart of their magnificent party, surrounded by folks who previously mourned for me like I was gone. The deceased girl, now standing in full color. I dug inside my purse and pulled out a manila folder. Old school, intentional, nothing digital. Paper was needed at this point, something they couldn't deny and could touch. "Before you cover up the last falsehoods with fresh lies," my voice said, steady, "let's make everything plain." I pulled out the folder and displayed the printed obituary on the first page. It was there. My name is bolded, date of my birth, a fictitious death date, and a brief, sterile line about how she found peace after a difficult period and departed us too soon. The room reverberated with gasps. A prayer was murmured. My mom appeared to be about to pass out. This was written about me by someone who took the time, in order to print it, to distribute it like a sorrow flyer at church. I turned to the next page. I was wearing a graduation cap when I was photographed clutching the keys to my first apartment. The opening of my design studio, stamps on passports, business permits, bills for utilities, evidence of life. Year after year, I was buried in rumors by you. However, you cried over a falsehood. I had a life to build. I looked across to my sister. She was still standing. She had large eyes. A champagne flute was tightly gripped by clenched fingers. "How about you?" I said icily. "My belongings were sold by you." She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I am aware that you stated I left nothing in my room after cleaning it out. You stole the ring that was intended for me from my grandma and wore it as though it were your own. You didn't just take my belongings. My narrative was stolen by you, my quiet, my name. She made an effort to talk and give an explanation, but there was no space for them. Not with the truth, like shattered glass strewn all over the room. I gently turned and met each person's gaze. You all watched. You heard the falsehoods. They were repeated. It was simpler to believe them than to inquire about the truth. To bury me, you lied. Now, however, the dead talk. The room broke. A few folks started crying. Others rushed out. As my cousin began to pace, angry that no one ever told him the truth, my aunt yelled something about forgiveness. Voices clashed. Fear, confusing, guilty. This family's meticulous facade, which they had worn for years, was breaking in real time. And me? I simply stood there, unapologetic, alive and composed, allowing the fire to burn. I didn't have to endure the consequences. I had expressed what had to be expressed. Truth dropped into a gasoline-saturated room like a match. It was burning now, with reckoning, not with anger. No one dared to stop me as I turned to go. In the ruins of their own falsehoods, the same individuals who had earlier talked about my disturbed spirit now stood dumbfounded. Just as quietly as I had entered, I left. However, I wasn't running this time. I was getting up. I heard footsteps behind me. A few cousins, tentative, soft, wide-eyed and younger, went to the driveway after me. I apologize. Slightly above a whisper, one of them spoke. We were unaware. I gave a nod. Out of acknowledgement, not forgiveness. The blades had not all been sharpened. Others did nothing but watch me bleed. Then the voice of a child. I turned to see a young child, maybe 8 years old. She clung to her mom's gown. She regarded me as though I were a fictional warrior. Not broken, not dead. Simply be courageous. Her eyes spoke louder than any words she could have spoken. And I took one more glance at the home before getting into my automobile. They believed it was the end when they cut me off. What they buried, however, came back stronger. Half a year has passed. The celebration is now only a memory. Not forgotten, but faded. The family is still affected by the whispers. I don't care though, because I am the one narrating the story for the first time. I put everything in writing. It was shared on a podcast. My voice, my truth, and my words. At last I heard, and an odd thing took place. People paid attention. People from other places reached out. Other ghosts, daughters, sons, siblings who had been buried by treachery and lineage. The ghost they made me is no more. I'm the unexpected storm they didn't anticipate. I haven't finished yet. Because ignoring the truth doesn't mean it dies. It becomes louder, more radiant, unstoppable. The last shot. At morning, I was standing on my balcony. My hair is in the breeze. The city breathing below, and my hands on the railing. No silence, no shadows. Only I'm alive and observed.